Good morning, Grace Covenant. It's a beautiful morning to do some planting. The earth is giving up its soil beautifully after all the rain that we've had. It's easy to dig in, and I needed some exercise. I also needed the hope that comes from planting. I love gladiolas. I love watching them grow and then bloom. And I love planting anything in the ground that reminds me that the earth continues to grow and bloom and give back. And it cares for us in the same way that we care for it. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I'm glad you're here this morning. Welcome to Black Mountain, North Carolina, where I make my home. It's good to be with you and to take a few moments to check in. Now, if you found this online, you probably know how to connect with our other online resources, but I would remind you that we have streaming services each weekend, and there are plenty of Zoom opportunities for you to meet with us online throughout the week, Bible studies and gatherings, so you will want to look at our website and make sure you stay connected during this time of social distancing. And that is our prayer for you, that you are staying home, staying safe, and staying connected. And hopefully in this difficult time you are finding ways to take care of yourself. There's been a lot of change in the last week, and just in the last couple days, as those of us here in Western North Carolina have had to adhere to the stay-at-home ordinance. It's not so bad if you're an introvert like me. I suppose for some of you it's a bit more of a struggle. And each one of us has to find a way to get through this time. I spoke yesterday with somebody who shared with me that she found a great deal of strength in Psalm 91. And so I wanted to share a bit of Psalm 91 with you this morning as we begin our time together. You who live in the shelter of the Most High, who abide in the shadow of the Almighty, will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. I started out our time together not trying to be Mr. Rogers, but trying to connect us with a song that I have sung since my childhood, His Eye is on the Sparrow. This scripture that I just read talks about protecting us, that God will protect us under his wings. There's a lot of imagery of birds in the Bible, and that resonates with me because I've loved birds and nature for my whole life. I've had pet parakeets and canaries and finches and parrots throughout my life, and fascinated at these wonderful creatures. And I'm reminded of scriptural passages that speak of birds and remind us of God's care. In Luke and in Matthew, Jesus reminds us that the lilies of the field don't toil or spin, yet they're more glorious than Solomon in all of his glory. reminds us that not one single sparrow falls from the air without God knowing it. And that if God is caring for the lilies of the field and the sparrows, how much more is he caring for us? So that's one image I carry with me when I sing that song and when I walk through the woods or spend time in my backyard and see the birds flying around. We've got sparrows and cardinals and blackbirds, occasionally a hawk. And I also have chickens running around the backyard right now this morning, enjoying some freedom from their coop. And so what's interesting for me working in the ground and connecting with nature and reminding myself of all this is that for those of you who don't know, I'm an Enneagram 5. If you've had an opportunity at church yet to take advantage of that and figure yourself out, at least to begin figuring yourself out, you'll understand that. If not, I would encourage you in this time while you're looking for things to do at home, perhaps to go online and read about the Enneagram and do some simple placements and see if you can find where you are on the spectrum. I'm a 5, and if you know anything about 5s, it means we live in our heads. We tend to live in our heads, we process all the time, we speak very little, and all of this processing and thinking is connecting us with how things are going to work in the future. So you can imagine for an Enneagram 5, what a difficult time this is. Even though I'm an introvert and enjoy being quiet, the brain is working and stressing because I'm thinking about the future. And Jesus clearly says, don't worry about tomorrow. We have to learn to live in faith during this time and not in fear of what tomorrow holds. We only have this moment, and we know that God's care for us is providential. The other thing about the 5 is, in order for me to get out of my head, one of the difficult things is that 5s typically aren't very physically active. So as a part of my discipline, as a part of my learning to care for myself, it's a good thing for me to get outside, to get a little exercise, throw the frisbee with the dog, hike up the mountain, dig in the dirt and plant, get my hands dirty. Those things are good for the soul, but they're also hard for me. And I suspect you are learning the things that you need to do to care for yourself in this time. And I hope and pray that you are able to connect however it is. Maybe you need to be quiet and read a book. Maybe you need to go off by yourself and just be in your head. Maybe you need exercise. Maybe you just need to take a deep breath. Or maybe you need to hold your child or your dog and just be. We're all learning ways to cope. But we want you also to know that you should stay connected. As I continue to think about the ways God cares for us and all the bird imagery in Scripture, I also am reminded that there are numerous scriptural passages where God is referred to as a mother hen who cares for her young and brings them under her wings. I saw this firsthand last year when I had a broody hen and we purchased a dozen fertile eggs to put under her. Now we live in the town of Black Mountain, so we can't have roosters, but I wanted a hen to hatch some eggs. You don't stick your hand in the nest when a broody hen is sitting. And once the babies have hatched, you don't get close either because she will fight you. And I see how that creature cares for its own. And I'm reminded that God says, I do that for you. I'm here protecting you and watching out for you. You may not know what's coming, but I see it and I'm here to protect you as best I can and to be with you and walk with you no matter what happens. So I trust that. Now, my girls are actually here in the yard, and I thought You might want to say hello to a few of them. Now we've gone from Mr. Rogers to Blair Witch Project as I walk through the yard, but I hope you'll connect. Here are some of the girls. Say hi, ladies. Yeah, say hello to Grace Covenant. Now, the other thing that I think about is that my first attempt at chickens was a failure because I brought home chickens and I put them in a modest coop, and I was not prepared for the bears in Black Mountain. And 3 years ago, they took all my chickens and destroyed the coop. So I decided, as much as I love these creatures, that I wanted to have them. And so it took me a while, but I built a veritable fortress for my chickens, surrounded it with 1,300 volts of electricity and double wiring. I had lots of help building this, and it took well over a year. But now my chickens have a safe place to roost. I don't have to worry about bears or foxes. And again, I got to thinking, if I go to all that trouble just to take care of a few chickens, I think God does even more of that for us. So every day I see these creatures, they remind me in many, many ways of how God cares for us and loves us. And as we go back to that passage, we'll close here. When Jesus reminded the disciples of God's care for creation, for the lilies, for the sparrows, not only does it remind me of the song we opened with, it reminds me of a Shaker hymn. And I'm going to share that with you right now. Just the words as a blessing for the time as we leave together today. Not one sparrow is forgotten. Even the raven God will feed. And the lily of the valley from his bounty has its need. Then shall I not love you, Father? In thy mercy have a share. And through faith and prayer, my mother, merit thy protecting care. May God, the Father and Mother of us all, look out for us during this time. May you find ways to care for yourself, to connect with the earth, with one another, with your families, and with your God. Know that we love you and that we are here for you, and that we look forward to getting through this together and seeing you again when the time is right. Godspeed.